Sharon, there was a video with Stephen Fry describing, in answer to a journalist's questions, how could God have created things like parasitic worms? And a couple of the questions that came in from the cards were along this line. What would you say in reply to that kind of a question?
Thank you. Perhaps some of you saw the YouTube video, the interview of Stephen Fry on Irish national TV a couple of years ago with Gay Byrne, and he was asked, Stephen, suppose it's all true and you find yourself at the pearly gates, what will you say to God at that point? And Stephen Fry essentially goes on a rant, and essentially bone cancer in children, what's that all about? And there are insects whose prime aim is to burrow into the eyes of children and eat outwards from the eye. And this is a really powerful thing, and as I listen to him, I see this is not just an intellectual question that he has, and I often do play this clip before I speak to suffering. The first thing to say is to come back to one of the points that I made, that actually if God doesn't exist and we simply live in a world where things do what they do, that's not grounds to for our angst as to why it should happen. You could argue that, on the one hand, we say that we're determined and we're just purely our DNA, working itself out. And that insect didn't know it was going to end up in a child's eye. It's just eating away at whatever material it happens to find itself in. There's nothing right or wrong about that. That's just DNA dancing to its music. But obviously, as Christian, we would say something different. I think one angle that it's important to say that another way that the fall has made us vulnerable to diseases like this is the contribution of poverty. You see, the eye itself is beautiful and amazingly intricate. I don't know if you've ever studied the eye. I did it at school, and there was a jar of them that followed us around the room, whatever we did. And the insect is also beautiful. And if you ever looked at various types of insects and under, a microscope, amazing that even as you get smaller and smaller, it's still incredibly beautiful. And there is structure there, and there are mechanisms there. The two on their own are not evil. It's when they come into contact with each other that problems arise. Why do insects even get the opportunity to burrow into the eyes of children? I suggest the problem is more rooted in poverty than in medicine. Clean water can solve so many of the problems. Malaria is still the biggest world killer. If we were to solve that and put our money into that, we might see a lot of the disease and sickness relieved in our world. So I would want to root it more in poverty. Thank you.